Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I am joined today by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
And I am Brian Black. Today we are going to talk about gear a little bit more in depth. Now, this show obviously is, built around discussing gear and things like that, but we all have limited budgets when it comes to gear, and I think that speaking a little bit more plainly in terms of how to source the best gear and what you should be buying and things like that are an important topic of conversation, and that's really what we wanted to address today. Especially with the holidays coming up, everybody is spread a little thin with buying Christmas presents and things like that. So, I kind of run into that too. It's like, do I do the whole buy cheap, buy twice? A quote that I like is that it's unwise to pay too much, but worse to pay too little. So that's a good way of saying it too. But it's not that you just buy the most expensive thing on the shelf because it's good, and that's right. Price does not always dictate quality, and that's one of the biggest things that we wanted to talk about today too. And also, everyone pushes Made in the USA, as do we with a lot of our products, and Made in the USA is great, but that doesn't always mean it's the best quality either. And I'm saying that just to be completely unbiased in this discussion too. I mean, we are a company that produces stuff in the USA, and we pride ourselves in that. But we pride ourselves in being a company that sources quality manufacturing in the USA, not just the cheapest labor that we can find in the United States. It's not all about price.
And I think that's a part of it is the Made in the USA thing for us also signifies that we do find quality manufacturing because there is good manufacturing here in the U.S. So it's kind of hand in hand. But like you said, sometimes it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should just immediately search for only Made in the USA.
Right. Yeah. And, really it's about trying to identify, materials that have a good consistency and, a manufacturer that uses good materials that you can identify. So, some things you can look for that, I kind of see in the nylon industry from my years of kind of being in it and developing products in it, is that there's absolutely definitely different grades of materials. So, Cordura is an actual brand. Even though that's a material that's pretty ubiquitous in the industry, Cordura is a brand that prides themselves on protecting their trademark too. So, I mean, we've had issues where Cordura's contacted us in our product and announcements or product pages to say, hey, we really want you to add the registered trademark and spell it this way, and this is the way we need it done, which I get. They're trying to protect their trademarks as a company because they don't want to end up like a Kleenex who, everything that's, a piece of paper you blow your nose with is a Kleenex. It's it's you kind of lose that, and I forget what that was called.
I think it's trademark dilution, or something like that.
Probably something like that. I remember learning that in my media law class in college, and for the life of me, I can't remember what that is.
If you don't use it, lose it.
and really, you have to protect your trademarks, and that's what these companies do. But that's kind of a little tangent there. But you're getting into the actual materials themselves, like looking at webbing and nylon and things like that typically go into manufacturing, pay attention to materials because companies that source good materials will let you know what they're using. They'll either tell you in the description of the product because they're proud of using those materials, or they'll come with hang tags on a product that actually says, hey, this is a Cordura product. So that's a big thing to keep an eye out for too. And then as you start to recognize those materials and that quality, you'll start to align yourself with brands that use those quality materials, and you won't be afraid so much to, pull the trigger on a piece of gear because you're not sure how it's made. You'll start to recognize those things through trial and error and being a consumer and buying stuff. And if it fails, like, why did that fail? Was it a stitch issue? Was it something that the company's standing behind? Did you reach out to the company and they're willing to make it right? They'll send you a new one. It's all that little stuff. And, I think a good characteristic of a company is that even if they provide some type of warranty for you, if you contact them and they're still willing to help you out on an issue, like that's a huge plus in my book. When it's happened to me personally with companies, that they'll try to bend over backwards to do everything they can to help you out with an issue on a product, even though it falls outside of a warranty period or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when you start getting into warranties, a lot of people talk about like lifetime warranties.
Yep.
But like, if you actually look at that and find out, when was the company founded? Oh, like 1992. And it's like, okay, well, they're not too much into like a lifetime. So like, I would hate to be like 80 years old and be like, hey, my backpack strap broke, So like, I think it's better, like you said, that even if they don't have like a listed, we'll do it for life. If you reach out to them and they make it work, that's what matters to me. Yeah. Not necessarily the term of their warranty, just knowing that they're willing to stand behind the product, even if it fails.
Well, I mean, it's pretty interesting, too. I don't know how long. I'm just using the example of Patagonia because it just popped into my mind. But I remember quite a while back, this is probably 2 or 3 years ago, when they were doing some catalog work. I remember flipping through a catalog, and they were showing like these old products from when they first started the company, probably 30, 40 years ago or something like that. And they were showing how their recycling program and things that they've done now, they try to fix old gear too and put it back into circulation rather than replace it and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. And and I know Patagonia's got their issues with our demographic with what they do, but they're also a huge contract sewing outfit for the military too. So they don't really advertise that, but they're
making good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, finding those quality goods, finding a reputable manufacturer or company that can stand behind those products. And, also look for a company that's innovating too. Are they just copying other people's designs and other companies' designs? Are they truly innovating and coming up with their own products and the reasons why they design those products? A telltale sign of who made the product first, it's probably the company that actually has a description of why they did what they did. Right. Versus like, here's our pouch, buy it. You know what I mean?
Well, what I was going to say is like, you'll usually find that descriptions and information about the product is a little more robust with stuff that's good quality versus, you're saying like, it's using Cordura, it's using this, and those all that information you can even research like what type of Cordura it is and like how they go to make it and stuff. So there's nobody's hiding behind the materials. Yeah, it's all available and out there. Versus like you said, short descriptions of like, oh, it's made of nylon. Yeah. Well, like what kind of nylon? Right. What's the weight? What's especially on the internet when you're purchasing things online. It's important to know the weight because if you have something that's, let's say, 500D Cordura and someone says, oh, this is with 500D Cordura, you can know what that weight and feel is going to be like versus just buying it sight unseen without knowing anything about it.
Yeah, and really reputation plays into a lot of that too. As I think the majority of people probably buy a lot of or make their purchasing decisions nowadays through personal recommendations, through friends and family and things like that. Sure. So that's where reputation comes into play. Like, what was your experience like with that company? Do you have, a piece of quality equipment that you purchased from them? Yes, it held up great. Like, I used it for this. I had an issue with this, but they were great. I contacted them. They replaced it. It's like those kind of things follow the company, and that's not the kind of stuff that, you really can find out about necessarily online. Yes, there's always reviews, and there's, Amazon's been kind of pioneering the verified review, and I tend to put more weight in those, but even verified reviews can be manipulated. So, I just, even though reviews are great, and I love reading reviews, and I've made purchasing decisions based on reviews that I've seen on products, I think a lot of that still comes down to personal recommendation, with friends and family and things like that too. So that's huge too.
Yeah.
Then kind of as an aside, kind of to move in a little bit different direction, I really want to talk about, I guess, upgrading equipment. So I want to use this analogy of like home buying. So when you're young, you start out, you buy a house, you realize, man, I lucked out on this deal. We got a great house and it's perfect for us. And then, you move in, it turns into a money pit. Yep. And you got to replace this and you got to replace that. And you start to build this list in your mind of, well, the next time I get a house, I'm going to look for this and I'm going to make sure this is in this place. And that's the kind of thing that I wanted to kind of get everyone thinking about when it comes to gear and stuff like that too, because those purchasing decisions are important. Like where you spend your money is important. And, buying good stuff from the get-go isn't always the cheapest to do. And not everyone can afford to do that either. So I'm not saying that everybody has the ability to do that. Sure. But I also want to, talk about the caveat that, people make time for what they want to do, and they make concessions to afford what they want to afford. So, and I'm not saying everybody has an unlimited, budget. I mean, everybody has a fixed income to some extent, but, choosing where to put your money into quality stuff from the beginning is important, but it's not it's also not the be all end all. It's more, hey, I've learned from that experience, Sure. Hey, I bought this one because it was on sale and it was a discontinued product, and oh shoot, I should have known that's why it was discontinued, because they upgraded, to better materials. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to kind of talk about. But, we all can't just get into a Ferrari when we buy a car. I mean, every kid probably has a dream of owning some kind of luxury sports car or something like that. But that's not what you get when you turn 16. You get a beater because you're just learning how to drive, and
I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, you're probably going to beat it up a little bit.
And you get to experience what you like and dislike about it. But I think also, like, for me, it comes down to need and then, like, would be nice to have.
Yep.
For need gear, I'm not going to save up to get the absolute best if I need. So a great example is, like, for muster, I needed a water can. There's some expensive water cans out there that I would really like to have, but I needed it. And so I went to Walmart and I bought the Coleman 5-gallon, and it's not the best. There are definitely things I would change about it, but it was there and I needed it. Now in the want to have, I want a better water can, so now I can save up, for a better water can eventually.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, because that's a lot of the situation that people probably find themselves in. I know I've been there too many times. You have a need and you think, well, I just need to get something because I have to have this for this specific reason.
Right.
And you wind up buying whatever's either convenient or cheap or
sometimes both.
Or on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the lesson that you learn when you purchase stuff like that is you develop a list of like, oh yeah, I need to upgrade that, and I'd love to have this better option for it. So,
because I have cheap gear that gets the job done just fine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, for me, like, the water can keeps water in it. If it were to leak, that would be a bad thing, and that would be one instance where it's like, okay, I got to get a better can. But in this case, it's doing the job just fine. And so if I wanted to get another one in the future, I could save up to get the really nice one versus like, I need to replace this right now because it's broken.
Agreed. Yeah, so I mean, that's another thing that we can talk about too, is that you may be able to start cheaper, and when you go to upgrade, there's nothing that says you wouldn't be able to sell the thing that you were upgrading from, so that you could put that amount either, retroactively or at the same time into that new piece of kit. So, selling it on a, Craigslist or eBay or some, aftermarket type.
I do that all the time.
Thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll do that too. Even stuff that, I'll try to, something I like to do a lot is I'll try to afford something I want by selling older stuff, even if it's not something I'm upgrading from. It's just, hey, I know I'm probably sitting on some cash around here somewhere, and there's things that I don't use anymore. I know I could get rid of them. There's plenty of commercials on TV.
It's like the eBay dream story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it works, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, again, being more descriptive and taking good photos and putting in the time to do it right in the beginning will net you more in the end. So, it's just like what we're talking about with gear. Doing that upfront work is going to pay off in dividends later on. So,
well, and I also think there's a case to be made for quality gear holding what you would call a resale value.
Yeah,
I think especially when it comes to like bags and packs and stuff, you're going to sell it for less than retail, but not significantly less. People know what good quality gear is, and if it's in good condition because it's good stuff, then you're not going to take as big of a hit. So for me, it allows me to try certain stuff and say, well, this really wasn't a good fit. I'll sell this and get something else. But it's not like I'm just stockpiling this stuff and buying brand new stuff. You can sell other stuff to afford it. And I hear a lot of people talk about like, oh man, how could you afford that? It's like, well, you just save. You don't know how long someone saved for to purchase something. So,
yeah, and like I said, everybody can, everybody buys what they want. I mean,
Yeah.
That's not to discourage anybody from, moving one direction or another. I'm just saying if, there's really something you want to get, there's plenty of opportunity for most people to find ways to do it.
Well, and if what you have works and you're happy with it, cool.
Yeah.
That's, one of the things, and I'm not a stereotypical internet commenter, but that's something you see a lot is of like people getting angry that somebody bought something that they wouldn't have. It's like, hey man, that's their choice.
Well, and on the flip side of that, to be a company in the industry, just to give my perspective here, to interject that into this conversation, because, I do have a unique perspective on that coming, from running a company for 8 years. A lot of people have this price in their mind when they see a product that they're willing to pay, and it's completely unfounded. And I'm guilty of that too. So this is not a slight in anybody. It's just more of a request to do more research before they, jump to conclusions, because you don't know what kind of R&D goes into a product. You don't know what it took to bring that product to life. You don't know what it cost to manufacture it. Yep. You don't know what the cost of running their businesses. There's just so many things that, one, I had no idea of before I started my own business. Like all that kind of stuff. I was just a typical consumer before, and now I have this interesting perspective on things when I see products. And I'm still guilty of that. I'll still look at stuff even as a business owner and somebody who creates products for a living, and I'll look at some and go, man, that's fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
But I also will not harp on it to the point of like, oh, I'm not going to do business with them.
Sure.
That might be my first reaction, but then I'll go, maybe it really costs that much in R&D. Maybe the materials are more expensive. Maybe they had to buy, so here's something that's interesting too. So when you're talking about materials, we talked about Cordura and things like that. Well, if you're manufacturing something from the ground up, there's a lot of times that you'll have to buy way more material than you'll actually use for the product. So price does take that into account. And yes, over time, what you're producing could become cheaper as you amortize that across the spectrum of the fabric that you have to buy in bulk or whatever to make this product. Yep. So that's always something that, I try to keep in mind when I'm looking at products too, is that, there might have been a huge upfront cost. Like sometimes when we're making products, we'll have to pay a prototyping fee or a mold fee or something like that, where that gets kind of amortized into the first run of whatever product it is. And then, if we do a second run of it, if that's even a possibility based on demand, we can afford to bring the price down as that product becomes cheaper to manufacture. So that's always something that
there's a lot of behind the scenes people can't see.
Right. And I don't expect everybody to know those kinds of details, that don't own businesses and haven't done that before. But that's just kind of a little bit of a perspective to just offer.
Well, I think it's, if you find a brand that you like and you've purchased stuff from them before, and I don't want to say trust them, but you have an understanding that they're doing stuff you like, and they come out with a price on something, to me, and I know I do this, oh, hey, that's a little higher than I thought it was going to be, but hey, I've bought gear from these guys in the past, so something must be driving it up, versus like fresh to the market, never heard of this person before.
Right.
When I'm like, ooh, that's expensive. I have two totally different reactions to that. And so maybe they're the same thing, but I don't know. But I think that all comes back to what we were talking about of like, it's not just about the gear, it's about the reputation behind it and like how they back it, and like, are you paying for better quality and them to be around to service it.
Right, and that's brand loyalty too, but that also plays directly into, companies being able to grow too, because, yes, you may think that's very expensive and can do it on, I mean, that's a typical thing we see a lot, and this is just an example to throw out here, the trauma kits that we manufacture.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not actually physically making gauze and stuff ourselves, but we are vacuum sealing them in-house and putting together our own kits. There's thought that goes behind it and things like that. And one of the things that we typically get is that, well, I can go out and buy those components for myself and make them for this price. And my response to that is, feel free.
Sure.
If you want to start your own business and you want to pay employee taxes and things like that, and have a physical location and take on the cost of multiple $1,000 vacuum sealing machines to do that, and not just your little seal a meal thing that's going to
Yeah.
pop when you put it in your pocket for the first time. Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into
Yeah.
to manufacturing that kind of stuff. So those are all aspects that, you know, most people don't take into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a selling things at cost class in business
Right.
school, because you shouldn't be doing that. You know, there's labor involved, and there's, you know, I think a lot of people see, one of the things is, not to keep harping on the trauma kits, but a lot of times somebody will say, oh, Quick Clot, I can get that for super cheap.
Sure.
And when you look it up, what you're getting is a much smaller size of the gauze. So like,
It could be that, or it could be expired.
yeah,
or
and so
something like that
it's
too,
it's
so.
apples to oranges, but
Sure.
people don't notice that. And so like, those kind of people, maybe they don't understand, and that's fine. But people that want to do their research, like we said, there's a description that tells you exactly what's in it. You can go look up every single piece, and you can decide if it's something you're willing to spend. But it isn't anything that's like, oh, well, we're gonna pull one over. You know, it's like, this is the pricing, and it's there. A lot of it is the development that went into it, and then the technique that enables you to carry it in your pocket,
and the
things
labor
like
that goes into creating it. Yeah.
So I always try to keep that in the back of my mind
Sure.
when I'm buying other people's stuff, of like, man, a lot goes into this, especially when it comes to like nylon and any type of sewing. It's like, there's just so much that goes into that.
Well, and there is, and you know, I'd be lying if I said I got into business to not make money. It's just, I mean, that's why any business owner starts their own business, is to make money and to grow, and to you would hope their intentions are to make a difference, and that's really what I got into business for. I felt like there was a void, you know, in the certain segment of the industry we're in, and that's really what prompted me to get into it. And I felt that I could do something to add to the noise, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've done that. We've done pretty good over the last 8 years. And
Absolutely.
That's kind of really what I wanted to focus on too, is that, you know, in researching companies and doing your homework of, you know, what their mission statement is and where they came from, and that's the kind of stuff that I try to look for as a consumer, is, you know, who are these people? How did they start? You know, are they doing good? I mean, are they in it for the right reasons? Are they just looking to turn stuff around and make a quick buck? You know, I watched a good episode of Shark Tank the other night. So it
Always
was
a great show.
Yeah, it's a great show. So it was Mark Cuban and the guy that, so he helped launch Smart Water, and there's another chip company that he did, Vitamin Water, Smart Water, all those things. So he helped kind of foster those companies through the process of growing to such a huge point that they were able to be acquired, and you know, the founders cashed in, you know, that type of thing. So there's these two people that are, and it was actually just last night I was watching this, so it's fresh in my mind.
Nice.
But there was these two women that had created this oatmeal product, and they were pitching it on Shark Tank. It's like a no sugar oatmeal, super cool idea. But so they were basically battling offers from Mark Cuban and this other guy, and I forget his name because I'd never seen him on the show before. But so Cuban made a great point. He's like, you know, do you want to change the world, or do you want an exit strategy?
Right.
And that's true. You know, it's like, what are you in business for? And, you know, I try to stay away from companies that are these serial entrepreneur companies that are just looking to, you know, cash in and make a quick buck. And that's not to say that their products are bad at all.
No.
I mean, there's plenty of companies like that, you know, hey, more power to them if that's what their goal is. But, you know, I try to support, you know, smaller companies that are truly trying to, you know, do social good, if you will.
Well, and focused on the product,
yeah,
not the money that comes from the product.
Absolutely.
That's a byproduct.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are just some of the things that I try to look for personally when I'm shopping for products, and I try to support up and coming businesses, but I'm also weighing those options with, you know, cost and reputation and other things like that. So, I mean, there's no easy way to navigate the waters, so to speak, of consumerism, but
well, and I mean, I don't know most places that don't have a return policy.
Yeah.
So if I do save up enough and I
Exactly.
purchase it and it's not for me, I can return it in the condition that it's in and call it good. So it's not about, you know, oh, I made a mistake when I bought this. Well, you'll know if you made a mistake right away.
Sure.
But, you know, I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction of like, I'm just going to buy this because it's cheap. And then later you regret it. Like you said, it's the unwise to pay too much, but worse to pay too little.
Very true. All right, thanks for listening to Gear Tasting Radio. If you have questions, be sure to use the # Gear Tasting on your social media network, and we will find them and get them answered here on the show. We typically do question episodes every once in a while. We haven't done one in a while,
blue
but
moon.
I promise you we'll get back to them. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts too, so you can be the first to know once we release a new episode every Tuesday. Also, while you're on iTunes, be sure to help show your support for us by leaving a 5-star review. It helps expose our podcast to more potential listeners, which helps us grow the show and make it better. If there's something we're not doing right that doesn't earn us 5 stars, send us an email to support@itstactical.com. We love to hear about it. I'm always open to feedback, and I am nowhere near perfect, and I am learning all the time.
Feedback welcome.
Absolutely. So, and then last but not least, check out our Patreon page where you can contribute on a monthly basis to help us produce better content. Visit patreon.com/itstactical, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.